What's been the biggest challenge just getting started over the last couple of years?
I think it's just getting patients in the door. I think and realizing how much of a salesman I actually have to be, which sounds weird as a chiropractor. So you got there's a fine line between being too much of a salesman and too little of a salesman. Because if you can't, you got to be able to like still close deals as a chiropractor, like especially if you're selling like these 6, 10, 12 visit packages, that are $1,400 plus. Like that's you got to just help them see the value in it, and I think a lot of that is just me explaining what I do and how I can help them. I think that's what I would do before is I'd just book a patient and wouldn't even talk to them beforehand. I'd just wait to talk to them until they got there. And then I realized as I've been working with this marketing team that I told you about, that I kind of follow this script now that I came up with that, I have a 15, 20-minute conversation as I get a new lead before they even come in, and saying, hey, just seeing if it's a good fit, seeing what they're looking for in like a chiropractor / like a physical therapy setting. Have they ever been to one? Explaining the injury that they have and seeing if, explain to them, hey, this can take usually, depending on what it is, like, 8 to 12 visits or something. And just laying everything out and then also helping them understand the value in it instead of just seeing a chiropractor or just seeing a physical therapist and kind of what the benefit of having both of those provides. And even mentioning some of my credentials is just like, did powerlifting. I do some bodybuilding. I've always played in sports, so I understand the injuries that you have, and because I've had pretty much every injury that they come in with, I've had. And so I think that helps build the value. As you talk to them on the phone, it gets them excited for the first visit. I mean, it's crazy now as I've kind of followed that script, how many of them are like, oh man, I'm so excited to see you on Friday, versus before people come in, they're a little hesitant and stuff. But if they can hear the doctor talking to them and maybe even like see them beforehand and have this conversation with them, it makes a huge difference. And I think that's where I struggled before. That was a big obstacle, was I wasn't a great salesman. I was just like, oh, I feel bad charging this, Yeah. And because before I wasn't as confident, so I didn't think, is this really worth what I'm charging,
Well, in the absence of value, everything's expensive.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if I told you that if you had to come up with $25,000 tomorrow, or you're going to lose your leg, like you're going to figure out how to come up with $25,000 like real quick. Right?
I know. Well, and that's the thing that I think I didn't realize how much like pressure is such a privilege, which there's a bodybuilder that's like this whole quote, so shout out to Chris Bumstead. But like pressure is truly a privilege because it pushes you to, like I could have stayed working at that walk-in clinic forever and been like, oh, I'm comfortable doing this, I'm just going to keep it, versus like you drop that and all of a sudden I'm like, crap, I got to come up with an extra $4,000 a month, to help pay for everything. And then all of a sudden I start calling patients and I start getting these new leads, and all of a sudden I've made that up in like a few days, it's like, oh man, that's amazing.
I think there's a nugget in that I just want to unpack for the audience, which is a lot of times there's a great book called The E-Myth. Have you read that book? You should read it.
Okay.
It's basically says that most people who start businesses are not entrepreneurs. They're technicians. They're really good at their specific craft. So they get really excited about the product and the service that they're going to deliver without a lot of thought around like, how am I going to get clients? What's my sales model? What's my sales process? What's my offer? What's my guarantee? How am I going to generate actual lead flow?
Right.
And am I going to do that? Am I equipped to do that? Do I need to hire a salesperson? Right. What's my commission structure? Right. They haven't even thought that far. So they're so excited about, I'm just going to be so much better than everybody that they're just going to think I'm so dope and they're just going to come.
That was me.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the trap. And a lot of what we're trying to get across with the podcast is that there's 8 real key things you need to be focused on, right? You got to focus on the product for sure. You got to focus on the service and the delivery, but you got to be focused on the sales and the marketing and eventually the leadership and the growth and finance and managing your cash flow. Those are things that nobody teaches you because you said it before we got on the pod, but you spent 8 years in school. So what was your undergrad?
So like what I major in?
What'd you major in? Yeah.
Yeah. So exercise science or
exercise science. Then you went to chiropractic school.
3.5 years.
3.5 years. And how much business school did you get during those 3.5 years?
One class in trimester 7 or 8 or something like
Yeah,
that. So,
so
there's 10
the tail
trimesters.
ends,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it was some guy who owned a practice, like, and he was like 75 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. And like he doesn't have any other practices. I think it's just him. I don't think he has any other chiropractors. So it's not really like a.
He's not a business owner.
No,
He's not an entrepreneur. He's a sole proprietor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a glorified job.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy's giving you wisdom on, how to run your practice.
Yeah. And it was more like how to avoid malpractice, pretty much. Yeah. Than it was like business. Like, don't do something stupid. Yeah. So,
geez.
which is helpful, but also at the same time, it's like, he's just talking about, he spends multiple weeks just on talking about, taxes and, when you pay somebody and here's what it looks like. And it's like, okay, I could watch a YouTube video on this from somebody who like really knows.
Irrelevant. Hire a bookkeeper,
Yeah.
a payroll person.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.